right, and now for the first time ever in the BS Beaton Bailey, history, I'm gonna do an exclusive Blu-ray review of Batman: Death in the Family. For those who don't know, this is the newest release from Warner Animation and DC. This is an interactive short film basically, and it's based on the iconic quote unquote controversial comic of the same name, Batman: The Death in the Family. And before I jump into like what the show is about, right? So I am marginally familiar with the source material, right? I've never read it before, but I've always heard about it. I heard the big how people, like the reception of it basically, right?
Yeah,
People
it's a
felt it
classic.
was yeah, but at the time now, people felt it was like, well, you're taking Robin and you're basically having people call to
It's
decide, literally call the comics, DC Comics, to
yeah, yeah.
decide whether he lives or dies. Like, how
But
can you
that's the
do
thing,
that
Jason
to
Todd.
such an
Jason Todd.
iconic
Yeah,
character,
yeah, yeah. Jason Todd was a character who was not as Robin. He wasn't that well received. Is
Yeah,
a Robin character I do like a lot. But
yeah,
I don't think he was particularly well received by the fans at the time because everybody was still Dick Grayson, Dick Grayson, Dick Grayson, Dick Grayson.
yes,
I
yes.
think Dick Grayson was Nightwing at this point, and that in itself was a somewhat unpopular decision as well.
Mhm.
And so it was a weird change for the comics. And even back then, even before the internet, you had fan mobs. So this is the chance to say, all right, like what are we gonna do with the character, blah blah blah.
Right.
But it ended up going on to create one of the, in my opinion, one of the best storylines ever, right?
Yeah.
And one of the best characters DC has ever, in my opinion. Um, so you'll see. I mean, I pretty um, I find it interesting how that quirk of history, because they could have, if they vote and kept him alive, what would have happened? And I get a feeling that they
Exactly.
and I get a feeling that they kind of knew the fan base for that. Like it's almost as if DC set up like they deliberately make this character unlikable. So, you know,
Yeah.
because he was
Well,
like
I wouldn't know, but I feel maybe they were trying to make him kind of like they're just resentful of Batman for a reason to kind
no,
of
all right. So
expose who he is now.
that's the thing. He was effectively designed as to be more or less the antithesis to Dick Grayson, right? Dick
Oh,
Grayson,
okay. Not
but because
Batman himself.
no, not really. Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, we
All right.
could talk about that, but to me, the idea was to make him the opposite of Dick Grayson, and because Dick Grayson come from the beginning,
Yeah.
the golden age, Silver Age stuff. Um, I would like to think that they design. All right, we want to be edgy. We want to make an opposite character. Like do that, and they give him a backstory that's different, right? Much different to how they do it with Ting, even though they have a similar backstory. But they make him different, they make him smart, they make him a different Robin, and the fan base didn't care for it. But I get the feeling like they lean on that real hard
Hmm.
as creators, and then they play with it. So anyway, we'll talk about it anyway, because like
Okay.
it ended up creating, well, his incarnation of the Red Hood, which is one of my favorite characters in the
Yes,
DC
yes, yes.
universe. And well, it made that amazing, animated movie, right? We
Yes,
still that,
under the Red Hood, which
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
glad you brought up.
Yeah, it's a true classic.
Still the best.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I should say one
comfort.
of the best.
Well, yeah, yeah.
DC animated films.
I don't consider it the absolute best, but yeah, it is up there, like in
Yeah,
definitely
'cause
top.
we still had to think about Mask of the Phantasm.
Right.
We still had to have that up there
Right,
in
right.
terms of the Genesis now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
a good thing that you brought up Under the Red Hood, because this is actually a follow up to that movie itself, right?
Right,
And it does have a couple of callbacks. I'll get to those in a bit, to the Killing Joke, right?
right,
So me, with me not being all too familiar, like I still haven't read A Death in the Family. I really should.
right.
I imagine it was like along the like how people freaked out at Killing Joke for being so violent and brutal.
Right,
It's like,
right.
oh, we're gonna do this again, right? Because Joker is in it, and as you should know from Death in the Family, yeah, he pretty much beats Robin to death, right?
Right.
So this movie here now, well, I should say this short film is kind of interesting here, mainly because it's interactive, right? So I'll get into what that means in a bit. But the story
Right.
itself, because remember they have to change it up basically from the source material, make it fit with Under the Red Hood, right?
Right.
So you can update the story. So instead of Robin being in in the Middle East, I believe it was, No, sorry, to Ethiopia, sorry, where he was killed. They set it in Bosnia, right? So it's during that time period. They don't really specify it's that time, but they mention Bosnia and Sarajevo and all that kind of stuff, right? So Batman is looking, well, on his bike. He's searching, desperately searching for Robin. Robin's trapped in his warehouse with Joker. Joker has the crowbar, just like in the source material. He's doing his thing, and we get some flashbacks really more or less stating what went down, right? So compared to the source, like in the source material, sorry, where it involved him trying to find his real mom, it's not really that. It's something else entirely, right? Well, similar but entirely different, right?
Right.
But it involves Joker acquiring some uranium and wanting to sell it to some terrorists or something like that. And
No,
then
no,
they
yeah,
also,
that was super, super, like, we forget about that. But
yeah, yeah. Remember,
Joker
it's
was
in
like,
late 80s, the source
yeah,
material
yeah,
came. This was like,
right.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because at the time the Shah of Iran was a thing, and it was real stupid.
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
stupid. Yeah, we forget how at the end it's like, what this DC comic had this like dumb racist nonsense in it at the time, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, but and also too, well, in this movie here, they incorporate they actually bring in Rachel Gould in this. So
right,
he has his own ulterior plan as well too, right? He stole some plutonium, so now Batman's trying to hunt him down, but the thing is that they like both him and Robin were on the same thing, on the same part. But the had a falling out, and it's like, oh well, Joker's here and I could get him. So he goes there. Batman's like, no, you can't do this. But don't do this by yourself. Of
right,
course, Robin goes, and he ends up in this situation, right? So at the particular moment now, where well, he more or less, all right. So what happens that Joker leaves the warehouse, right? Robin manages to crawl his way to the door, only for the film to show, hey, there's a ticking bomb going on here, right? And
right,
it has like 10 seconds again, and Batman is like almost close to trying to saving Robin, right? So the movie kind of stops there, right? Sorry, the film stops there, right? And to jump into the review one time, right? So what they do is that the movie, I keep saying movie, right? Forgive me, right? The film stops, right? They give you a few options, right? So basically, it involves whether Batman reaches in time to save Robin,
right,
if Robin somehow makes it,
right.
or if Batman dies, right? That's
Okay.
really, yeah,
All right. So
that's
they do the banner snatch thing then.
exactly right. So so
Right.
so they give you, yeah, so they give you those options, right?
Right. Okay.
And from there, the story will just keep progressing and progressing, right? Now, as I say, under the Red Hood, they do incorporate the Red Hood, because if you pick a particular option, Robin becomes the Red Hood,
Right.
and where he goes in terms of that, you could choose as well. So he could either just do this, well, it mainly it involves him getting back at the Joker himself, right?
Right.
But the film itself makes you decide whether it's a matter of killing him or killing Joker or not, right? But the whole killing Joker or not all boils down to what happens to Batman, which I don't want to spoil, right? So
Right.
without going, I don't want to spoil anything beyond that, right? But yeah, this is the beauty of the show here, is that it goes in these different directions. Now, just a little warning here, right? So there's a digital version of this, right? There's a
Right.
digital version of the film. And what they give you is Batman's story, like
Right.
him more or
That's true.
less, yeah, straight Batman doing his thing, on this,
And
being
if
impacted by what happened, but
if I understand,
it still leads to the Red Hood stuff, right?
right, but if I understand, they just outright take footage straight from Red Hood. Then. That film.
Yes, 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 yeah. They
Right.
actually do incorporate some stuff from that film. I
Right.
remember there's a moment involving, well, Black Mask is there, and there's a
Right.
moment with his goons, and the Red
Yeah.
Hood
Right.
comes in,
Right. With Joker.
guns
Yeah.
blazing, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. That's there, right? But what I love about this show here, what was kind of interesting, is how they rework certain scenes. So you would see Robin in different incarnations, right? At one point, you would see him as Red Robin.
Right.
At another point, you would see him as the Red Hood himself. As the Red Hood, he would either be trying to just, well, he's trying to get at at Joke. He's trying to get his attention, but there's going to be a moment where he was going to decide whether he wants to kill him or not, right?
Right.
And it involves something that Bruce says, I mean, like, don't go down the path that I went, don't kill Joker, right? And it's just a matter of the choice that he picks, right? So I love that. But just to get back to the digital version, right? So it pretty much gives you Batman's perspective, right? And I would say in terms of the endings, right? Because it's like seven endings. I believe it's seven endings that they give you. This is kind of the weakest. I would say second
Right.
weakest. There's one that involves Robin that is generally weak because it just kind of stops and it doesn't
Right.
go in, right? But the one with Batman, I get where they're coming from with it. And one thing that was a kind of a gripe for me without spoiling too much is that it's mostly like him just doing his voiceover narration. And he's just telling the story a mile a minute. Like,
Right.
well, when I went back to Gotham, Red Hood was this, and I went here and I did this, and Nightwing, and da 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 da. And you're just basically seeing a montage of all these events, right? Without that much moments for the story itself to just breathe and just kind of have characters see things. It's just
Right.
Batman just telling the story from start to end, right? And without spoiling anything again, who he tells it to was quite interesting as well, right? But I felt the show just kind of stops there, no real resolution. It's like, oh well, all right, that's the end, right? So I would say, yeah, that is the second weakest story, right? The weakest one involves Robin himself, and I would
Right.
say the other stories, the other decisions made or you can make in this film here, all center on Robin, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that it shifts focus from Batman to Robin, because like, oh well, all right, if you're giving him the option to live, well, let's see what happens to him from there. You know what I mean? And
Right.
yeah, where they take Robin's character, I thought was really fascinating because, yeah, I mean, it goes through the motions, right? If you're familiar with the comics or the incarnations of Robin, you'll be like, yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, he survives here. He becomes bad for this reason. He doesn't
Right.
trust Batman here. Or on the other hand, he wants to live up to Batman's reputation. There's actually a really cool moment where Dick, yeah, where Dick himself actually becomes Batman temporarily
Right.
because,
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
yeah,
How?
yeah. So like
It's
I
called
say, if
Battle for the
so,
Cowl. Yeah.
yeah. So I
Right.
would say that if you are a diehard fan of the Batman comics in particular, and also the movies that came out as well, yeah, you should be familiar with a majority of these
Right.
choices. Like, okay, that's cool, that's cool.
Right.
And you also have some really cool cameos as well too. Don't want to spoil any of them, but they come at just the right time. It's like, okay, I like that, like that, like that.
Right.
As I mentioned, Rachel Gould, Talia is there as well. There's a
Right.
subplot involving her and Batman, and they even bringing Demon in this too.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah. Well, yeah.
what? Okay,
That's
okay, okay.
that's that. Well, yeah. Exactly. So yeah, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's all the Robins. These are Robin. Right.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So I really dug that about this, where it just shows you all these different, Robins and all that kind of stuff, right? But they either center it on, or okay, so they mostly center it on Joker himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Exacting revenge on Joker. But there's even a moment where, once again, if you're familiar with the comics, they center it on Batman too, because yeah, Batman resurfaces. Don't want to say anything beyond that. It's like, okay, okay, they do that too. Okay, all right, I
Right.
like that. I really, really like that, right? So yeah, if you're a real diehard fan of comics, you will just love all these decisions that are there, right? So
Okay.
just to talk about the Blu-ray quickly, right? So what I dug is that once a story is told, you could always there's a little menu thing in the bottom right where you could go back to where the first decision is made, and you
Right.
could choose what next option you want to make now,
Right.
and
Right.
then you could just keep making whatever decision you have to make to see how that story plays out. So I
Right.
really really dug that, and because it's mostly centered on Robin, it was just a joy just seeing where this character was going. It is R-rated though, and yeah, boy, they really do capitalize on that arc. Yeah, this shit kind of graphic at times though. I will
Right.
not like to. It's not gratuitous, but at the same time, it's like, God damn though, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Which makes
really
which makes sense. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Give it the source material, boy. But
right.
I'll just see this. Yeah, this is not for kids at all, right? It is the violence is very, very bloody in this, and appropriately so. You know what I mean? Given the subject matter.
Yeah.
So that's to talk quickly again about the Blu-ray stuff, right? So just when I thought, all right, so this is it. All right, cool. You know what I mean? I watch out all these stories here. All right. I mean, let me see what else is there. Some bonus feature stuff, and we actually get four animated shorts. You know what I mean, to go along
Okay.
with with Death in the Family, right? So I am not a collector of all things, DC animation, right? So apparently all four of these shorts were on prior releases. Um another well, mainly with Batman, Justice League, Superman, and Wonder
Right.
Woman, right?
Right.
But I didn't care though, because like, hey, I get bonus content, right? What's interesting too is the characters that they focus on. So they just mainly take like these kind of obscure characters or characters that you wouldn't really hear
Right.
about when you talk about the DC universe, and make these like roughly 50-minute shorts based off of them, sorry. So first off, we have Sergeant Rock, which I was familiar
Okay.
with because of,
Yeah.
well, 80s DC comics, but I never read a
Right.
single issue of it. And like I was surprised at what the story was about. But I was like, all right, this dope though, you know what I mean? And it's
Right.
voiced by Carl Urban. I was like, well, okay, you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Right.
Man still can't hide that accent, but no
Right.
matter
Yeah.
how hard he tries. But in terms of what Sergeant Rock was about, I was like, wow, I really should have gotten into this though. Um, we also have Adam Strange,
Right.
which for
Okay.
me was kind of on the weekend of things, but that's just mainly because I know nothing about Adam Strange, right? But it's a sci-fi story, you know what I mean? It's kind of derivative, but the world that they create here, I thought was really, cool. So, you know what I mean? At least I got some sort of, at least it's intrigued me to the world of Adam Strange. The third one is the Phantom Stranger. I'm like,
Right. Okay.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like I see obscure characters, right?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I won't go as far as saying deep cut. It's just what happens that there's a lot of zig and zag when it comes to popular characters. So characters
Right.
that would be super popular at one point and then just fall off the map within a generation. And it's shocking how
Yeah,
fast
yeah,
it's shocking how
yeah.
fast that's happened. So yeah, but yeah,
Especially with DC though. I mean,
yeah.
if you think about it, right? Yeah.
Because like
But
this character, well, Shazam.
yes,
Shazam was more popular than Superman at one point, and then he just fell off the map for ages, and well, mostly because of legal reasons, but
right.
like still do, stuff like that, and he just yeah, it take people actively trying to revive him to make it work, but yeah, he just disappeared
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
for
Um.
decades.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So the Phantom Stranger, that was pretty decent as well. It plays on 60s psychedelic counterculture. Basically, it has a sort of a Scooby Doo haunted house kind of vibe to it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm digging it. It's groovy, literally. So it's fine. Story wasn't the greatest ever, but it was entertaining at least, right? And then we had, for me, the best story and best short. That would be Death. This is based off of the Sandman character, Death.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I was a little intimidated at first because I saw Sam Liu, directed it. I know he directed, like some of the films that he directed we covered and we weren't really particularly fans of. By the way, Bruce Timm directed, like I believe he directed the first three films, or I think it's like the first, I think it's two of the
Okay.
three that I mentioned before he directed,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bruce Timm wasn't it? Yeah, he do he
Yeah.
think. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but I admit though that was shockingly excellent. Though, like I was,
Right.
you know what I mean? And it's what I love about it is how different it is from the other three. Like it's comic book, but at the same time, it's this really deep meditative look at death. You know what I mean? Just
Well, yeah,
centered on this
it's
individual.
yeah, it's
It's Neil
arguably
Gaiman stuff, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's arguably the best author that the comic books ever had, right? Neil
Yeah,
Gaiman. I mean,
yeah. And you
so
see his influence throughout it, though, from the way it looks, the way just the stuff that the characters go through, and the way how it ends, though, just like well, it's in the title itself. You know what I mean? Just the idea of death and how one should embrace it when that time comes is like, you know what I mean? It's very, very, very profound in my opinion. And yeah, I just thought that, story wise, animation wise, visual wise, I thought that yeah, this was the best hands down of the shorts. So but the thing is now, with the digital version, it's like this full like all these five shorts that I mentioned, including Death in the Family. So it just kind of runs like this anthology now. So which I find is kind of odd because I mean it's Death in the Family. What's with these other shorts, right? It kind of reminds me of like that Coen Brothers movie we covered, the Ballad of Buster
right,
Scruggs.
right, right. Yeah.
that was like the first film in the anthology, but everything else was just totally different, right? It's kind of like that, right? But the shorts themselves, for me, just really just introduced me to all these like characters that I kind of like familiar, familiar with, sorry, but I never really know anything about them, right? And into just similar with the arcs where they went with Death in the Family. I kind of want to go and like read more of these things now. You know what I mean? So yeah, as a whole, this package, this DC showcase, if you want to call it that, excelled at that. You know what I mean? In terms of just introducing audiences to new characters, or I should say old characters, and just taking this familiar character of Robin and just taking them on different leans now, where now you want to read up about Red Robin, now you want to learn about Red Hood and all that kind of stuff. Now you want to do your research and read up about these characters and see where the story continues from where it stops here in this film, right? So yeah, I kind of enjoyed this though. This was great, but I would imagine though, like if you just went in with just watching the Batman version of the story, you'll kind of come out of it very, very, very disappointed. But I'll say if you get a hold of the Blu-ray itself, then yeah, that's when you get all the goodies itself, right? That's when you get to see Robin and just where they take his character, and that's where this whole Destiny family thing shines. So yeah, this is a win as far as DC animation goes. Well, one animation slash DC. I haven't been too wowed by the stuff that they put out.
Yeah.
This year, like Superman Red
For me.
Sun,
Yeah, me too.
Man of Tomorrow, and stuff like that. But this one is
Yeah.
like, yeah, and even Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. I mean, this is the one that I know all the fans love. But I mean, oh gosh, man, if it start with Flash and end with Flash, then
Yeah.
why have Constantine be the main character in this though? Just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying, right? But yeah, this was I really really enjoyed this. So I'd say get a hold of the Blu-ray. It's worth buying if you're a fan of just the Batman animated, the movie stuff, right? The animated movies.
Right.
Yeah, you'll have a blast with this one. You'll enjoy the interactive stuff as well too. And I would say don't just stop with with the interactive stuff. Like actually go out and read about the Red Hood, read about Red Robin, read about Nightwing and all these other characters. Hell, even we read a Death in the Family itself. Like I plan on doing that, right? So yeah, this is a win for me. I'm gonna give this a decent 4 to 5. The Blu-ray itself, and I would say, yeah, Ricardo, if you get around to it, I urge you to just check out the interactive stuff as well. And yeah, I really would love to hear your take on where they take that Robin character. I know you. I mean, you're a big DC fan, so I know you will
Yeah.
like the Easter eggs and the references and stuff like that. But at the same time, I know you'll be like, they could have ended this a little better. They could have go a little further
Right.
here. They should have do that here. You know what I mean? So I would love to hear your take on it. So yeah, I mean, so I just recommend Ricardo, you check it out. So can't wait to hear your
Well,
review of it.
I'll go. I'll get it Tuesday. So hey, next week.
Yeah, 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 definitely, 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 definitely. And yeah, I mean, I would say, guys, yeah, this is definitely a must buy. This is definitely a must watch. And in terms of like the other films themselves, I mean, yes, they were checking out as well. And yeah, I mean, DC is onto something with this, man. I think that
Right.
this interactive stuff is really cool, and I would love to see what story, what iconic story they pull this off next. I would love to see it with a Superman story or something like that,
Right.
or
Right.
maybe a Justice League or something. So we'll see, we'll see. But yeah, that in the family is a win in my opinion.
All right. Nice one. Nice one.
All right, so sticking with cartoons for a bit, let's talk, or I should say, you will talk about Star Trek Lower Decks.
Right.
You mentioned the series premiere a while
Right.
back, so now we're
Right.
gonna get the full 10 episode season run of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ricardo, take it away.
Yeah. So this was pretty good for me actually overall. I'll start with the bad, and then I'll get to the good. The bad. Well, says that it's a little too inside baseball in terms of Star Trek fandom, right? It leans on Star Trek references.
Define inside baseball.
So the word inside baseball just means only. esoteric. Only people who in the inn will get it. It's that. It's,
Oh, I
why.
see. Which I was worried about. I remember mentioning that, like,
Yes, right.
will Trekkies be the only people who will understand the show? Right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that. It does rely on you being a Trekkie. It's heavily reliant on these references, and it's a lot of deep cuts. Like the entire almost all of the humor and jokes is or at least all the big bits is either something that's zany and or zany and referencing something in Trek, right? And that's it. And it's always some obscure episode in Voyager, some line from um, TNG, or some
They go with
reference.
lines too. So
A
is that
line,
just scenarios,
yeah, no,
lines
like
though?
it's super deep cut, or they'll mention some obscure character in an episode or something like it really deep cut, like a real thing. And they do their work and research, because that was the whole premise for Mike McMahon TNG season 8 um, Twitter account, right? That's basically what it was. It's what if we had TNG season 8 and he just made a bunch of funny tweets, and that is basically the show. However, the good side, this is the good part. It's a bunch of Star Trek deep cuts, perfect for me. This is it's more or less tailor made for a guy like me. And what it does quite well, and well, to reference what I was talking about with the first episode, is that because it's the quote unquote second contact ship, right? That is the whole point of the Cerritos. They kind of come back and check up on whatever planet or whatnot. Uh, it does the thing of saying, well, the first ship, the Enterprise or whoever it is, will address this thing and may solve a problem, but it's quite possible it could go back and fall into that trap. Or they'll reference, say, things like the Prime Directive, which is like a big controversial talking point for Trek fandom, for example. And they make all these nice actual references and to go with that with the 4 characters, you have the first main character who's well, he's gonna be the subject of the next show we're going to talk about. This is Brad Boimler, voiced by Jack Quaid.
Okay.
Um, he is the kind of one of the main characters of the storyline. He's the upstart ensign who um, you know, ambitious and always kind of a little bit of a kiss ass, and he's that. He's the guy who does he know about track manuals, but he have no experience. He's all book smart, right? Then you have
Yeah,
the other
and it
character.
pretty much fits Jack Quaid pretty
Right, right.
much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That same
Yeah.
kind of nerdy, general nerdiness, moviness.
Mhm.
Right, kind of, quote unquote, that type of character. Then you have Ensign Beckett Mariner. She is effectively the main character of the show, right? But along with him, she is the exact opposite of him in terms of personality. She's incredibly competent, but she doesn't effectively figure out a way to kind of self-sabotage herself um, going forward in the storyline. And then you learn something about her in the first episode that puts that into really, really intelligent context. And they have a lot to say about that in terms of, general evolutions of social commentary in the Trek universe. Because Star Trek is all about that. Right? Star Trek is a incredibly didactic show. Then the 2 other characters who they haven't been fleshed out particularly well yet. That's uh, Tendi, Kenton Tendi. She's this alien. She's a what you call an Orion in the Trek universe. She's a green girl, but she's like super, very optimistic and whatnot. And then you have a character, Samantha Rutherford. He's the cyborg of the group. He's a human, but you have the cybernetic part of his skull, brain grafted onto him, and then that allows him to solve a bunch of problems and basically be the engineer of the group. And the show is effectively that. It's if you're not a big Trekkie, you won't get these jokes. Sorry, and that hurts the humor somewhat, because it's not generalized humor. It doesn't try to play to the masses, and it doesn't really rely on general science fiction tropes all that much either. But where the show somewhat holds up is in the humanistic aspect of that aspect, where you have character development, what characters going through, what characters feeling, and the big reveal about in the first episode, you'll see this is Beckett Mariner's mother is the captain, right?
Okay.
And that's a big thing. That's like at the end of the first episode, pretty
Mm.
cool. But it builds from there, and they do a lot of interesting stuff. The 2 truly standout episodes of the season, out of its 10 episodes, is episode 9 and 10. Final two episodes. Episode 9 does something, again, you have to be a Star Trek fan, but it does something so brilliant, which is basically just making fun of all of the Trek movies. That's what
Oh, wow, okay.
That's the whole joke of the episode. But it does that so well and so brilliantly because you know what to look for. And even somebody like me who thought, I would have gotten fed up of the jokes, right? Something like that. I thought that would have happened. I thought I would get fed up with the Trek jokes. Like, look, I get it, it's Trek jokes. And some of the jokes kind of wear thin. Like, they'll make some reference to, higher ground or something like that, right? Or something like that, like some obscure episode in season 3 of TNG or something like that. But then they'll hit you something a little really, really clever later on with some other joke. And it depends on how funny they want to make it, and it's up to you. But so that's where I'll say the main flaw of the show is that in that sense. But then they have good character work, how they build it, the optimism of certain characters, especially Tendi. Rutherford's interesting in that way. They haven't done enough with them, but then they do the thing. And then the finale, as I say, episode 9 is this brilliant movie episode, and episode 10 is this really, really great shake up to the status quo. It's a great finale. Like what finale is supposed to do in terms of shaking up the status quo, it does that very, very well.
Okay.
The finale is outright brilliant. I can't be mad at that finale at all. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. And I really didn't think they would be able to top episode 9. Like episode 9 was really, really clever and brilliant. Episode 10 is even better. I mean, it's so good in my opinion. At least for a Trek fan. If you really like Trek, they do so many things. Great shake-up, great subversions of a couple things as well. Again, if you're accustomed to Trek conversations, they reference that. They had a couple of things I was missing from it. And then they make a couple other references and jokes to like critiques of Star Trek fandom. Because that's what it does as well. It also does extra deep cuts of Star Trek fandom conversations. So they'll like reference something about like a common critique of like the new shows, for example. And they made a great joke about that. How like in the episode, the last episode, they make a nice little reference of a common critique of Picard, for example. Of Star Trek Picard.
Right.
And it's a good talking point. They make up a good talking point to reference it. They have all these little extra jokes and references to the finale of Star Trek Enterprise, the finale of this. And it's really funny because, again, we as Star Trek fans wouldn't shut up about it for the better part of 15 years. And they pay it off. And they make a bunch of things that we thought wouldn't have been made canon. They made it canon, especially involving a certain character. There's a big surprise at the end of, not the biggest surprise, but a pretty big, great moment and reveal at the end of episode 10. Great. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it in terms of like if I wasn't a Star Trek fan, would I have liked this show? I'm not sure. But because it's so tailor-made to guys like me, I can't say anything. It clearly was for me. So if you're not a Star Trek fan, I don't know if you'll like it. I have no idea.
Well, but, just to interject here for a sec, I think by now, because of how how many decades the franchise has been standing strong and how devoted to the fans, I think you can kind of get away with stuff like this, right?
Because
every product have to, what about the people who never saw TNG?
Right.
What would they think? It's
so
like, it's for y'all. It's for y'all, right?
But they have all these like little meta-narrative jokes as well that they do really well. Like they have a nice little joke where they say, one of the characters say, wow, it's really interesting to talk about. Okay, so they make references to something that was in an episode of the original series, TOS. So they had a character in the universe mention the TOS era. I was like, no, that's a fan designation. And the captain was like, what? The TOS era? What are you talking about? And he's like, those old scientists. It's like little dumb things like that. There's all these little weird things.
I like that. I like that kind of.
They do a lot of that, and the thing is, you have to look. Some of it is like little eagle-eye stuff that I myself wouldn't care about, but like I would just pause and scan back on the player and check it and say, oh, okay, that is what it is. And then they might mention a name that I forget, and I'll just you'll type in memory alpha, and right, that is that character, that is a joke, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
All of it is that. Most of it is that. I off the top of my head, I remember like as a Star Trek fan, I remember like 80% of the material, and then like the extra 20% I'll just check memory alpha quick to reference it. Stuff that you can't check on memory alpha is more like stuff in the episode, and you have to go back and watch the episode So that's where a joke is. Like they had a great, really, really funny joke involving a Romulan warbird. And I thought that was like probably one of the funniest things to me. But and a lot of even my Czech friends and colleagues they themselves didn't get it. I'm like, oh, that's in this episode, right? Balance of Terror. It's a reference in Balance of Terror and a joke in it. And that was a whole joke. And I didn't think anybody got that. But look, Mike
but
McMahon,
the more you're describing the show to me, the more I kind of understand why it's designed that way. I just think
yes,
that
yes,
if they
yes.
just keep at it, like just keep
Well,
refining the humor, yeah, they'll have a
right.
great
The right thing.
series on their hands
The
there.
show, right. When the show evolves itself, with the final episode, especially when what they do with the final episode, the show evolved itself in its own narrative and meta narrative, and started to build on its own stuff, right? And especially
Oh wow.
given the timeline, it decided to go through it, right? Because it's in the time period and it's right after the events of Star Trek Nemesis, and this is when things didn't really go to shit to the Federation yet. So things was normal, but they had like the characters making references to things that to come because it's not Picard just yet. And if you're looking for a Star Trek franchise that not for new people, go to watch Discovery because Discovery doesn't even try to be too Trek fan in the nostalgic sense. This is,
Yeah.
however, the nostalgic button pusher, right? This is the franchise that does that, and it's super hard to judge it in that sense. You're not going to square it, right? It's either you get it or you don't. And I'm in the camp that gets it, and so for me, it gets a very high score, like something like a 9 out of 10, 9.5.
All right. Nice.
In that sense. But if you were just watching this as a non-Trek fan, the thing is that they already know what soup they're swimming in, right?
Yeah.
And
I see. The more you describe it, the more I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
it kind of have to be that way, you know?
right, exactly. So that's why I'm not. It's kind of weird to critique it in that way if you're not a Trek fan or if you're not. I don't know. It's a weird conversation. Because I know it have people who will watch it, try to give it a chance, and then to think, oh, well, it's not that funny because this. But it's like, well, if somebody have to explain the joke to you, then maybe we could debate if you still get it and you don't find it funny. Like I can imagine it have a person who could get all the Trek references and still don't think the show funny. That's perfectly fine. But I thought it was fine. Like I thought the jokes were funny enough to make it work and really, really clever in that sense. Again, especially that those last two episodes. Those last two episodes are so well done and so clever. And yeah, as I say, the finale is truly excellent. It was a really great cherry on top for a whole, or overall pretty solid series. It had a lot of great references. They reference all the jokes pretty much. And I'm surprised that they was burning through jokes that much. That's why they're going to be referencing stuff later and probably making its own show later, especially with all the big shakeups that they do later down the road. Yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I'll give it a very high score, but with the little asterisks involved of, hey, you need to be a Trek fan for this, but then again, they know that you need to be a Trek fan to like this anyway. By the time people watch episode 1, because they're not gonna try to appeal to any mainstream fan. This was like super deep cut stuff. In fact, it's so deep cut you're wondering if you can't believe that they watch all them episodes, right? It's more like
I know, right?
it's more like they just dig up memory alpha for literally a month and then scour and then write from that maybe.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Right. I just have one more question, right?
Sure.
You know, like how Rick and Morty has its own, sorry, not has its own podcast, but these guys have a podcast dedicated to all things
right.
Rick and
So
Morty. Is there one
yeah.
for Lower Decks?
Yes, there is. I haven't listened to it myself, but I think for the finale, Tony Newsom made a reference. All right, so they have a couple podcasts. I think there's an official Star Trek podcast. There's another podcast that stars Sir Rock Lofton, and I forget somebody else, but Sir Rock Lofton he played Jake Sisko in DS9. He has his own thing. And
Okay, cool.
then you have another podcast called the Delta Flyers. And what the Delta Flyers is, it's basically I think it's Robert Duncan McNeil and I forget the actor name, but who played my brain's slowing right now. Yeah, who played Paris and Ensign Kim from Star Trek Voyager, right? And it's called the Delta Flyers, right? Because the Delta Flyer was a thing they used to fly in Star Trek Voyager. That is the name of the podcast.
Right.
And they talk about the show as well. And they have their own material referencing Voyager. They talk about the Voyager and they talk about the show as well. And it's just this, the little building up of the little cottage industry around a popular franchise with podcasts and blah, 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 blah. I don't listen to all of it, but I'm aware of it. It's good enough. that's it. So yeah, I do recommend just watching the official Star Trek podcast. Tony Newsom, who's the voice of Beckett Mariner, she was on the last couple episodes, I think. And then they just kind of talk about the show, all the little references. Again, Mike McMahon is king of Nerd Mountain right now, right? He really know what he was doing, and they really know what to do when it comes to show building and the world building of this. So that way I can't be mad at this. It's excellent. And then, little extra news. Well, the other animated show that is skewing for younger is going to be starring, the Queen herself, Catherine Janeway. Your girl Red from Orange is the New Black. Yeah, she coming back. They making it good. Right, so cool.
Right, so
Yeah.
Bears Beats and Daily, where we promote Blu-rays and other people's podcasts, right?
Yeah, apparently.
Nice.